Hey, and good morning, everybody. This is Sherman Ray, Black Success Magazine, the podcast. And on today, Success Magazine has really been just fun. I've actually missed you guys all week long. Haven't even been on all week long. Been really busy doing some other things that we were working on. But normally we're here from Monday through Friday, about 8:30 in the morning to about 9 o'clock in the morning. We simulcast this on Facebook Live and on YouTube and all over the fruited plain. If you'd like to hear more about Black Success Magazine, just go to our website at www.blacksuccessmagazine.com. And if you would like to have your question read online on air on Fridays on our show, Open Line Fridays, just go to our website or send me an email at info@blacksuccessmagazine.com. Also, you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. And so today it's Financial Thursdays with Robbie Thomas. I'm very excited to have Robbie Thomas come in with us. So Robbie, come on back into the show here. Let me make sure I can bring you on here. Let's see if we can bring Robbie on the show. And so we want to make sure we bring Robbie on here real quick because we don't want to bring our guest on too quick. So Robbie Thomas, how you doing today, brother?
I'm great this morning. How are you?
Awesome, man. A great week so far in Las Vegas. I hope you've been having a great week.
It's been a great week so far, and certainly looking forward to our time together this morning.
Yeah. Last week, Robbie, we were talking about home ownership, and we were talking, just some of the aspects of that. And I'm really excited to continue that conversation. And a little bit later, we're actually going to bring on another guest, Bishop Ron Thomas, and we're going to be talking a little bit more about some other aspects of financial growth on how to become successful. So I'm very excited about that. But let's start off with you first, Robbie. So
Sure.
let's talk a little bit more about some of the advantages of home ownership. What have you found out since we last were online?
Well, my mission has always been about economic empowerment, and home ownership to me represents one of the most important elements of being empowered economically, because it gives you the ability to create wealth. And so maybe that's not necessarily the way you want to go in, but it certainly gives you the opportunity to be stable in a community, to raise your family in a place where you can be comfortable and be consistent. It's so important for kids to have a stable place. But you can also launch a business. You can use part of that home to launch your own business, and you have so many of the tax advantages of owning real estate, which the tax laws are sort of built around. So those are some of the real important keys, I think, when it comes to home ownership. So I'm really a proponent of getting people what they need, whether it's education, trying to break down the barriers to getting capital, getting your credit squared away so that you can own a home.
Yeah. Robbie, I'm sorry, thinking Ron already. You mentioned starting your own business out of your home, and that's kind of one of the advantages. Many people have already heard of Airbnb and those types of those. If you don't own a home, that is probably you're missing out on one of the most golden opportunities. In order, I live where I live at. My neighbor right across from me here has created a short-term rental for his home, and you know how much that guy makes per day just on that short-term rental? He's making like $500 a day off of that. Amazing. And he has people in there every couple of days. Every couple of days, he has a couple of new renters, basically. But definitely there are some advantages to having business. So, what other kind of advantages are we really thinking about that business owners they're missing out on, or maybe even tax advantages that they're missing out on by not owning their own homes?
Well, again, the importance of building equity over time. One of the important things that when you do research and you look at where the gaps are in certain communities, the wealth gap is pretty extensive between the African American communities, for example, and other communities. And one of the ways that you bridge that gap is to begin to grow your your equity. And
Mhm.
you do that by owning real estate, owning something of substance. And over time, as it appreciates, you grow your wealth.
Yeah.
Most
Oh,
of the
hang on, wait 1 second, Robbie, because we're saying some big words. We're saying some big words here now. We're talking about equity, and we're
Yeah,
talking about, what are we talking about when we're talking about equity? And for just a reminder, because I know a lot of the folks that are watching this are very business savvy, but there are some
right.
that are probably not. When we're talking about equity, what is equity in a home?
Equity in a home is essentially the difference between what you owe the bank and
Hmm.
versus what you've already paid off. And so
Okay.
the difference between the two, for example, when you purchase a home, you're putting a down payment down.
Yeah.
That's the beginning stages of your equity. So whatever
Hmm.
you put down on the property is your equity.
Hmm.
And what you borrow is your liability. And so
Okay.
the difference there is actually what you own. So you own a
Okay.
fraction of the home, the bank owns the other part of the home.
Yes. Generally, yeah.
As you pay your mortgage
Hmm.
down, you increase your equity. And
Okay.
over time, your equity becomes greater than your
Yeah.
liability. And ultimately, when you pay it off, you have the entire property as your own.
So let me ask a question also, because a lot of people are buying properties, and let's say you bought your property, let's say 1960 or something like
Yeah.
that. You still owe money on the property. Let's say for some reason you've been refinancing your house, you still owe
Right.
money, but the price of the home is significantly more now. Let's say now the value of the home has gone up, tremendously. Does that affect your equity on your home also?
Yeah, if you're borrowing, so obviously 1960 is greater than 30 years, and you won't get too many mortgages greater than 30 years. So you would have paid
Yeah.
off your first mortgage, but maybe you had refinanced and you try to take money out, or you've got a home equity loan.
Yeah.
Some of those products do decrease the equity in your property because you're
Mhm.
borrowing more or you're leveraging more money out of your property.
Yeah.
The bottom line is to make sure that you're not taking out so much money that you're upside down. In other words, you owe more mortgage than you own house. And so it's very
Yeah.
important for us to
Yeah.
manage that. Yeah, there are times that you need to leverage your equity. When I say leverage, when you think about people that want to finance college education, a lot of us look to
Yeah.
borrowing to go to college. And that could be a great
Mhm.
way to finance your college education. But you want to use it for something that is important enough. College education
Yeah.
secures a job that gives you a higher rate of wage that you could certainly take care of, the obligation. So those are some of the considerations I think that may be really important to put
Well,
yourself in that position.
I'll tell you, I think as we talk more and more about, um, and I want to give plenty of time for our next guest to come on, but um, as when we come back to talking about home, more, owning your own home, there's so many advantages of owning a home. You mentioned one again, even as we're talking about borrowing money on your house
Right.
and being able to pay for your kids' college tuition out
Correct.
of money that you actually have in your home. You hear this on commercials all the time, that your largest investment you will ever buy is probably your home. And I
Yes.
don't think what they say is that it's probably the most important and the most valuable
Right.
thing that you will ever buy, because of the things that you can actually do with your home if you buy a home that you can't do with a rental.
Right.
And one of them, like you were saying, is college, and that's something looking forward for, especially people in the black community, that sending our kids to college it should be one of the highest things that we're trying to do, is trying to build a legacy. But briefly, before we bring on our next guest, because I really want to give our next guest plenty of time, talk a little bit about being able to leverage your home
Mm-hmm.
to pay for, let's say, a college education.
Well, again, it's one of those important assets. We have to make sure we understand what assets do.
Mhm.
Assets are really the best types of assets help you build value,
Mhm.
and you can learn how to harvest your asset. It helps you to generate additional revenue, so you can either go, you can use it for college education because you're number one, you're borrowing money to purchase a home. You're probably paying the lowest you'll ever pay for capital or for an asset, right? You're talking single digits, maybe 3-4%, whatever, if you have good credit. But additionally, once you achieve that, once you own it, you can leverage it for other types of things that will even create more value, like an education or a business. You can actually borrow money from yourself to just to launch a business, which a lot of people do. And, and then that business creates additional value. So we're really talking about being able to maximize an asset in a way that creates more value for a family.
That's amazing. And it's a principle that people have used for generations.
Absolutely.
Literally using their home to build their future off of, because it's your home. I mean, if you're planning on keeping it for any length of time, literally that could be your base basically of operation. You can leverage your home. We could talk so much more about this. We will have to come back next week. We'll definitely have to talk. But let's turn the corner a little bit, because we've got a guest that we're going to be bringing on. And Robbie, I want you, Robbie and I talk all the time about finance and about different ways of creating income. And you were telling me about a friend of yours that and it's actually a mutual friend of ours, but you know more about this guy. So I want you to introduce our next guest and why and the importance of this next segment.
Well, I really think it's important to have various perspectives on financial and economic empowerment. Mm-hmm. And our next guest, Bishop Thomas, is, a unique figure in that space, because not only is he able to speak to the kinds of things that we ask questions about, how do people empower themselves, and in ways and pathways that you can empower yourself through career options and vehicles. Especially like things like the insurance business, which he's familiar with. And, he's also a pastor, and he sees a lot of the people in this city and understands their needs and habits. And he speaks to those things in a very, very tangible way. So I thought it would really be important to have his point of view as we discuss, issues around economics and economic empowerment.
Fantastic. So Reverend Bishop Thomas, Ron Thomas, welcome to the Black Success Magazine today. How are you doing today?
I'm absolutely fabulous, gentlemen. Thank you so much for having me. I've enjoyed the segment so far and what I've heard. So it's just a pleasure to be here with you, and I'm excited about the conversation.
Well, fantastic. So let's start off. So your name of your business is called Thomas Consulting Group.
Yes.
And how long have you been a part of this organization, or when did you found it?
Well, it's always been a principle of ours to try to talk about success and wealth. About 2 years ago, we started this particular LLC, but it's been about 4 years now. The opportunity came when just praying and asking God about ways to empower people. I was introduced to the concept of IMO, which is an insurance marketing organization, where it's and Freedom Equity Group is the platform that I currently am serving in, that has given me the opportunity to not just make money for myself, but to give others an opportunity to become entrepreneurs, business owners, to teach financial literacy, and just to help individuals understand how to manage resources and how to build wealth for themselves. And last but not least, leave a legacy.
Yeah, that's probably one of the biggest ones right now. We deal with this in the Black Business Chamber through Black Success Magazine, as we're writing and bringing out articles. Is one of the major shortcomings we have in the Black community is leaving a legacy, that generational wealth component that is so important. You, in your work as a pastor, and I think you can commingle the two, financial advisor, mentor, pastor, bishop. Where do you see the biggest shortcoming, or do you see this in the Black community as a part of your congregation, or just the people you're talking to in the community?
Well, absolutely. Coming from Harlem, New York City, and being a resident of Las Vegas for well over 45 years, not necessarily being associated with the church coming up, but once I got involved with the church, and I began to realize that there were some biblical principles of finance such as tithing and giving, when I began to realize that, although there's an ask for resources, there was never any real opportunities that was provided to show people how to manage their resources. And so becoming a pastor, I thought it was absolutely imperative when you have people that are struggling, fixed incomes, when you have blended families, when you have two individuals that it's absolutely necessary to work outside the home to try to make their ends meet, having an opportunity to share with your congregants just a basic financial principle. I was, college graduate, degrees and all that, but I had never heard of the rule of 72. Coming up in the world, when you're on a hustle, you always understand how you're trying to double your money. In business, whether it's suits and you're selling clothes, you want to try to triple. You want to have some money back, to reinvest in your business. You want to have some money to pay employee or staff, and then you want to have some kind of resource to live on. So just the principles of business. But the rule of 72 is just a basic principle of how long it takes for your money to double. It's an Albert Einstein theory. It's based on compound interest. And either this compound interest is hindering us because we have bad credit and it's costing us more for something, or it's working for us because we've invested our resources in something that's going to give us a return. And we don't have to guess. We know exactly how much that money is going to be so many years from now based on that principle.
Yeah, and this is awesome. One of the things that that is amazing is that different people groups teach different things. I mean, really, I think we can be very honest about this and say there's more emphasis put on certain aspects of, who we identify as a people in different people groups. And finance should be one of what should be very front and center in every people group. And yet we don't see that within the Black community as much as we are. So, do you feel like this is a mandate that you've taken on to begin to really emphasize this? And Robbie, you can jump in on this too. Sure. Is this something that you feel like is a mandate that needs to be emphasized in the Black community?
Yeah, sure. And personally speaking, once again, pastoring for so many years. And then when I came across this opportunity, it absolutely, because number one, in the Black community, as a pastor, people die. And the sad thing about that is when a person is not prepared themselves or their family for that inevitable moment. And so the new insurance over this new generation with the social media has become GoFundMe accounts. Absolutely absurd. For a Starbucks coffee every day for a month, a person can put a value on their life of $500,000 if you're young and if you're healthy. You can never, you're your best investment. You as an individual, if you're healthy, you'll never be more younger or healthier than you are this day for somebody that's listening to us. And so to be able to take that, meager resource and put a value on your own personal life. And what we have, Rob and Sherman, is unique to the insurance industry because most people, if they are fortunate enough to have life insurance, what they don't have is living benefits on their insurance policy. And that's what our agency provides. It provides to where you become the beneficiary if in the event you have a critical, chronic, or terminal illness. So if a person finds out that they're diagnosed with cancer, they have a $500,000 life insurance policy, they can write a claim on their policy, get 90% of those resources while they're still alive to enjoy the quality of life and to be able to do that bucket list and to be able to take care of those medical expenses, because life happens to all of us.
Sure. Yeah. Robbie, did you have a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Not only do I agree, I think, one of the things that I noticed in doing research about financial literacy, that this specific state ranks 48th out of 50 states in financial education. And it's not to say that we're, casting any kind of, shadows or on the state per se, because it's a big issue across the country. And so the gaps between understanding products like the insurance product that you just mentioned, where we know that insurance typically, when you heard about it, it almost signals that something bad happened, right? And so we tend to shy away from the inevitable. We're all going to pass away at some point, but I think we don't have the conversation about why it's important to protect your family, to protect your assets, to protect your legacy. A lot of us die without having the kind of resources to even cover burial, right? So we need that educational gap to be closed. And so I'm glad to hear that, your organization is doing the kind of work, and it really should be across the board. But I think we need to make sure it becomes a part of our day-to-day mandate in the way that we continue to do business in our community, to empower, educate, advocate, to continue to have this conversation with our families and our community.
Yeah. And let's go back to this. Go ahead, Ron.
And two things are, number one, as it pertains to insurance, putting a value on your life becomes so important. People don't talk about it because, once again, it's called life insurance, but really the old thing was death insurance.
Yeah, exactly.
No one benefited until someone died.
True.
The insurance market is an $8 trillion industry. We have insurance on our cell phones. We have insurance on our cars. We have insurance on our homes, but people don't take the time to insure the most precious asset that they have, which is their own persona. So what we do is we try to educate as it pertains to living benefits, that you don't have to die to take advantage of the money that you're investing in your own person. That's the first thing. The second thing, as it pertains to financial literacy that we're doing, Robbie and Sherman, is we're trying to help our communities as it pertains to later in years, and that is with their retirement. We want people to retire with dignity. We're finding out that one of the worst things that was ever created in 1978 was the 401k, because it can happen in your economy. The president can make a gaffe, the one business can do something, and the next thing you know, all of your life savings that you had set up due to no fault of your own is now gone. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to share with individuals how to reallocate those resources into either fixed indexed annuities, where irregardless of what happens in the market, your initial investment that you put into this particular instrument, you will never lose it, no matter what happens in the market. And then I heard you talking earlier, Robbie, about equity in homes.
Yes.
We have a product called an IUL, Index Universal Life Insurance Policy, where individuals can invest in themselves and they can have that resource to be able to leverage and become their own bank, as opposed to borrowing, loaning money from this source and that source. They have their own nest egg of resources that they can borrow from themselves for that college, for that home, for that car, or whatever life happening to them, an asset there. They have it themselves.
Correct.
So they're not getting 18.
Ron, let's talk about that for just a second too, because that was really something that I keyed on. You mentioned the word living benefits as opposed to life insurance, and we just came off a conversation where where we were talking about home ownership and the advantages of having a home, because you can actually borrow against that home. When you have life insurance, or you have the insurance that we're talking about here, people insure their car, they insure their telephones, they insure their shoes, none of which they can actually borrow against. I can never imagine somebody going, I've got my cell phone here, I'm going to borrow against that because I'm a little short this week.
Yeah, right.
So talk about that a little bit, because I heard you say that. We don't have a lot of time left, but just talk about that a little bit, about being able to borrow against. Now, this wouldn't be your primary thing, but if you so chose to, how you could borrow against your own life insurance in order to forward your agenda in life.
The product that we're talking about, Sherman, is called Index Universal Life Insurance Policy. It has a cash value. Most people, if they're familiar with insurance, back in the day, it was called whole life.
Okay.
We call it index because it's based on an index. We index it either versus the S&P 500, or we've been fortunate to have our own index through the organization and the insurance companies called the Barclay Index. And so these indexes have guarantees. 4% is flexible, 7.9%, and it can increase all the way up to a ceiling of 13.5%. And so with that being said, the resource, if I'm paying $100 or $200 for my own policy, I have a living benefit, and I have a cash value account that's growing incrementally at the same pace. What we do for our clients is we want to make sure that that cash value grows so we don't make them top heavy with insurance. So for a healthy individual paying $200 a month or $100 a month, this is what they're doing towards their retirement. So it's going to automatically come with a life insurance benefit policy. That's one thing that 401ks don't. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Anyone that has a 401k, they're putting 200 or 300 or whatever, and their employer is matching. What they do not have is a living benefit policy. Mm-hmm. All they have is a cash accumulation. We give you both. We give you a cash accumulation and a living benefit policy. Mm-hmm. And as that cash accumulates over time, they'll have, the same amount. And most of the time it equates to over 9 or 10 years, whatever they place into that, not only have they had that life living benefit for those 10 years, but they probably have the same amount in a cash account as they've invested in themselves. Right. And then the rule of 72 begins to take its effect, and that money begins to double over the time. So if you do it for a child, we call them $1 million baby policies. By the time that child is ready to retire, they're worth $1 million in cash assets. $1 million life insurance are getting so much in retirement for the next 10, 20, 25 years, however that's arranged and set up in its inception. So it's a wonderful opportunity. And as the cash accumulates, again, as life happens, they want to go to college, they want to buy their first home, not trying to take money and get loans. They have that $30,000, $50,000 down payment right there in their own cash account.
And I'll tell you, and that is and especially for parents who are having children right now, instead of going out and buying them the Gucci purse or buying them the shoes or buying, the new Jordans, maybe they should be looking at their future and creating one of these accounts with you. Robbie, what were you going to say? We're going to have to end on this, but go ahead.
Yeah, I know that part of your organization's mission is to try to recruit people and to give them a career path. Can you say just a few words about that as a possible career path for individuals?
Absolutely. We're looking now to expand the territory. Getting this information out is key. Freedom Equity Group is giving us all a platform to be able to share. What we do is we don't sell insurance. We sell the opportunity. We sell the opportunity to become an entrepreneur. And the product that we have to qualify that just happens to be annuities and living benefits. So anyone out there that desires to become an entrepreneur, start that home-based business, wants to grow their livelihood, we're trying to produce $100,000 earners. We teach it. They don't have to have any financial experience. We do all the training. We're really looking for quality people, might be a little frustrated with the job that they have right now. Know that the $25, $30 an hour is just for their livelihood, but it's not going to secure their future. We're looking for you, and we want to be able to help you and train you in the things necessary to become your own entrepreneur and to leave a legacy.
Well, fantastic. And Bishop Thomas, if people want to get a hold of you, because you got 10 seconds, people want to get a hold of you, how would they get a hold of you?
My number is 702-325-8476. And my email is ron@thethomasllc.com. Again, ron@thethomasllc.com.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much for being a part of the show today, Ron. And Robbie, thank you for inviting everybody on. We'll see you both we'll see you, Robbie, next week on Financial Thursdays with Robbie Thomas.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, gentlemen. Blessings.
And guys, thank you so much for being a part of the show. This has been Sherman Ray, Black Success Magazine, the podcast. Once again, folks, if you would like to check us out tomorrow and you'd like to have your question read on the air, send me an email. At blacksuccessmagazine.com. We will actually read. So our Fridays are open line Fridays, and we'd love to have you in as being a part of that show. And we'll read your question on air. Once again, if you'd like to find out more about Black Success Magazine, go to our website, blacksuccessmagazine.com. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. Folks, this has been Sherman Ray, Black Success Magazine, the podcast. We'll see you again tomorrow for Open Line Fridays at 8:30 in the morning. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.